Let's begin with the shakeup at OpenAI. Co-founders Sam Altman and Greg Brockman have been hired by Microsoft to lead that company's new AI research team just days after the home of ChatGPT ousted Altman as CEO. A push to reinstate him did fall short. In a post on X, Nadella says that Microsoft will move quickly to provide the new team with the resources needed for their success. He adds the company remains committed to its partnership with OpenAI, working with interim CEO Emmett Shear, who previously ran Twitch. Jim, the challenge here is to explain to viewers how much this matters. Some of these names our viewers may not know.
Right. I think that this was a real company. I mean, it was valued at a price that I thought might be the #1 IPO whenever it comes. It had a lot of firepower. Obviously, AI is the thing that's going to drive the next level, say, of the Magnificent Seven. And I feel, David, that it's the open rebellion and the idea that this company could disintegrate because the letter that I'm seeing from employees, it basically indicates that the company may dissolve.
I mean, this is just a shocking and fascinating story in so many ways. Obviously, you talk about a potential IPO at some point. You've got to remember it was the unique structure of the company in and of itself that allowed this board to take the action it did for really what are still undetermined reasons. I mean, sadly, I can't tell you based on what I've heard with any confidence what it was really about. We can refer to the published reports of many reporters who were following it saying maybe it was he was moving too fast in commercialization, that being Mr. Altman, and any number of other concerns perhaps. But the fact is, to your point, Jim, $86 billion was the most recent value. That was a tender that they were going to allow employees to potentially sell some stock at. And now it's unclear what it could be worth at all, especially given this letter that you just referenced, in which hundreds of the company's employees are basically telling this board, you're the worst. You've jeopardized all the work and undermined our mission. Your conduct has made it clear you don't have the competence to oversee OpenAI. I do find it rather risible that, in fact, this letter is also signed by this guy, Ilya Sutskever, who seems to be the reason that Altman and Brockman left in the first place.
Look, I don't think it's very funny because we were talking about the Argentinian election. I mean, I don't want to draw too many parallels, but I mean, Carl, it does seem like it's anarchy. I mean, anarchy is the word that comes to mind because I've never seen a major company get rid of the top guy who, by the way, this is not Adam Neumann, okay? This is a real company with a guy who obviously is very important. Microsoft goes down 8 when he departs. When the company blows up, and now it's coming back up, but it shouldn't be worth as much because suddenly it doesn't have a stake in a company that's worth a lot. So, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this other than the fact that it just says the disarray that can happen. Look at this, Microsoft's not even up now. The disarray that can happen is extraordinary.
It's extraordinary. Now, that said, you do have some private investors, Thrive Capital, for example, and others who put in significant amounts of money. Don't forget the $13 billion number that we hear with Microsoft. A lot of that is actually made up of essentially what are cloud credits on Azure, meaning OpenAI needs enormous amount of computing power to run its large language models, and so they use Azure. They don't have to pay for it. So that's money credits, essentially. So that's included there. But, Jim, on the other side, Microsoft now gets Altman, they get Brockman, they get I don't know how many employees. They still own 49% of OpenAI. They still have the right to use their weights. In other words, the way that they train these large language models in perpetuity, potentially. And you can make an argument that says they actually come out of this thing looking much better than they were on Friday.
Okay, that's what I felt, other than the fact that maybe people felt that they had a stake that would be worth a lot. But, I mean, the stock's down 8, and then it's down again today. They're the winner.
Well, it's not clear that the stock, I've talked to a couple people who, now they own Microsoft. They'll tell you they think ultimately they're the winner here.
I think so.
Because, again, they control a lot of the IP. It's unclear. Altman himself is now over there. By the way, he probably had a tough non-compete that basically meant he could only go to Microsoft, but I don't know. That's
conjecture because I can't. And he had no shares, right?
Right.
He had no shares.
But you also had this weird nonprofit aspect to it. Remember, OpenAI was a nonprofit. That's why Elon Musk was so upset with him, because he changed it from a nonprofit, and then he took this part that became ChatGPT and made that the profitable part. But ultimately, even as an investor, you were capped at what was originally 100 times your investment, but there's a waterfall that actually lowered that multiple over time.
Have you ever seen a company go from 80 billion to 0?
No.
I mean, what was I don't know what 40 to?
I don't know what it's worth. We don't know, Carl, but The fact is, this is fascinating, and especially this latest letter, which basically seems to indicate, to your point, either the company implodes or they reverse everything.
Right.
Or somehow Microsoft takes full control, but I don't think they can because of the regulatory concerns there. And that may be one reason why Microsoft didn't even have a board seat, which you can still kind of question.
But
why, for all that money, they didn't have at least one board seat to stop this very thing from happening.
And who is Emmett Shear?
I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, I know.
He ran Twitch.
Yeah. Right, but that's what Kyle Vogt did. And Kyle Vogt's out of GM. This is what you win one Twitch, you lose one Twitch.
You've been all over the cruise thing, which we'll get to.
Oh, my God.
Really quick, it's funny. The sell-side notes are already out of date because a lot of them were written over the weekend.
I know.
But Stifel does say, for the first time in 2 decades, this is one instance in which Microsoft is not playing from behind on an emerging tech, and they reiterate by 390. You've seen a lot of that.
Right. I think I think Microsoft's doing incredibly well without this. So I don't know why ever since Nadella came in, I think it's just been a total home run. And I think this is going to be. But Dave, the one thing I think people are judging right now at home is AI a joke?
No.
I know.
No,
I mean, to me, people who say, listen, this company was the chief one, now it's worth zero?
No. We can all speculate. In fact, and again, this is pure speculation on the part of people trying to understand what it was that really divided Altman from his board.
Right.
But maybe the next version of ChatGPT is so powerful that they're afraid of allowing it to get it out there. To your point, this is far from nothing. This is, in fact, I don't know, have we had anybody we talked to whose opinion we care to hear say anything other than this is the most important emerging technology we've seen in the last 30 years?
It's funny. I want to conflate this with Mike Wilson. Now, he had a note that came out last Thursday, but he's talking about can the Magnificent Seven basically follow up. The Magnificent Seven, if it doesn't have AI, if Amazon doesn't produce, if NVIDIA obviously doesn't produce, which I think it will tomorrow night, I come back and I say, AI is how you're going to get these companies to the next level. And if whoever doesn't have AI or use AI is not going to go higher, the only one that I would exempt is that Apple, because they have a new cycle, maybe they can transcend it. But AI or bust for next year. But if they produce AI, you got another year for the Magnificent Seven.